All right, so we're only 2 weeks into this young college football season, and absolute pandemonium is already unfolding as South Florida walked into Florida's trap and took over their trap, beating the Gators on a game-winning field goal to win 18 to 16. And now I did cautiously warn everyone last week going into this weekend. I was starting to hear murmurings of, oh, these matchups don't look as intriguing as they did in week one, not as many heavyweight matchups. This might be the weekend, so I go take care of that project I've been wanting to work on. Go to Home Depot, make some repairs on the deck, clean the gutters, and that's fine and all. But I've been watching the sport for a while, and I'm only 25 years old. I've been watching this thing for a while, and trust me, crazy shit can unfold on these weekends, like week two, where nobody's expecting it. Last year, at this time, on week two, Northern Illinois went into South Bend, beat Notre Dame. So, it was a Phil Collins weekend, right? You can feel it coming in the air tonight. And, well, it happened in Gainesville as South Florida walked in there and beat the Gators. Now, there's a quote from Henry Ford that I love and really resonate with. It goes like this: if you think you can do a thing, or you can't, you're right. South Florida is a prime example of the accuracy of that quote. Because this is now the second consecutive week that South Florida has beaten a ranked team. Week one, South Florida hosted the Boise State Broncos, who are a blue blood in the G5 world at least. They were ranked 25th to start the season. They were in the college football playoff last year. This is a program that has a high standard for itself, and they play like it. Very, very well coached as well. South Florida, they didn't give a shit. They did what they had to do. They trusted their process, and they pulled off a statement victory against Boise State. One that definitely turned my head. And then week two, South Florida walks into one of the most highly coveted environments in all of college football. One of the most intimidating places to play, in the swamp. In Florida, Gainesville, Florida, to take on the Gators, who I think have one of the best rosters on paper in college football, at least. South Florida, once again, they didn't give a shit who they're playing. They didn't give a shit where they're playing them. Why? Because they believed in their abilities, and they believed that they could. So like Henry Ford said, they were right, and they did. They delivered. You see, so much of this great sport can be condensed down to confidence and aura. That's why you see phenomenons like Ohio State losing to Michigan 4 years in a row, or the Bills time and time again losing to the Chiefs in the playoffs. It's not necessarily because those teams are better all the time. It's a psychological advantage. You either believe you can do a thing, or you don't. Florida's roster, far superior to South Florida's. On Saturday afternoon, that did not matter, because South Florida had that belief. They had that swagger. Growing up a Patriots fan, the team I dreaded playing the most, it wasn't the Colts, it wasn't the Steelers, it was the Baltimore Ravens. Because I knew that every time they came to Gillette, they didn't give a shit. They had that aura, they had that swagger, they had that chip on their shoulder. And that's what South Florida plays with. That aura, that confidence, that chip on their shoulder. They play with an attitude. And it's a reflection of Alex Golesh and the culture that he's built with this team. Now, keep in mind, Alex Golesh at one point was the offensive coordinator for Tennessee when they knocked off Alabama in 2022. Those were some high-flying offenses that the Vols had, but they played with an attitude. They played with a chip on their shoulder, and you're seeing that be exemplified with the Bulls now. And if you go back and watch South Florida since 2023 when Golesh got hired, they've gotten progressively better every year. You see their confidence blooming in every game. And now it's finally playing out on a national stage, and these Bulls are getting national recognition, and Quite frankly, they deserve it. So caps off to Alex Golesh for that. Their quarterback, Byron Brown, I know that he can be inconsistent at times. I know that he can be up and down, choppy at times. But when South Florida needs a play, when USF needs a play, Byron Brown is always there to deliver. He's kind of like an Eli Manning in that way. It's not going to be pretty all the time. It's not going to be sexy all the time. But when it's time to deliver, he steps up. He did against Boise State, and he did against Florida several times on Saturday as well. And also, caps off to that nasty USF defense. They were giving DJ Lagway fits all afternoon. He could never get comfortable. He could never get into a rhythm. I want to give a special shout out to Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler, who played out of their minds, made life hell for the Gators. If you want to win a game like that, you want to go into the swamp and get a victory, you've got to manage time possession, you've got to win the turnover battle, and you've got to hit them in the mouth. Make the Gators feel uncomfortable, get them out of their rhythm. That's what South Florida did. That's why they pulled this thing off. This was a massive victory. Program-defining victory for South Florida. Looking ahead for the Bulls here, I think that they could very well be the best team in the G5. Okay, I know a lot of us were talking about Boise State. I picked Boise State to go back to the playoff. I'm probably going to be wrong, and I'll admit it. A lot of us talk about Tulane. A lot of us talk about Navy. Some of us talk about James Madison. Well, from what we've seen, from what South Florida's already accomplished this year, they may be the best G5 team out there. And it's up to them to continue to build on this momentum, stay consistent, finish the season strong. The Bulls have a massive game next weekend on the road in Coral Gables against the number 5 ranked Miami Hurricanes, who've looked incredible to start the season. So that's a tall task. And all I ask out of South Florida in that game is to keep it close. Even if Miami wins, the playoff committee they'll evaluate this game the same way that they evaluated Boise State's game against Oregon last year. You go in, keep that game close, and you win out, because after Miami, South Florida has a really manageable schedule. So you keep it close, or even pull off in Miami, and then finish off strong. Without a doubt, South Florida will be in the College Football Playoff. Of course, they have to win their conference as well. But congratulations to Alex Golesh, and congratulations to the number 18 ranked South Bulls. That ranking is very much deserved as well. Like I always say on this show, I like to start with winners and then transition. Well, I want to talk about Florida here for a few minutes. Breaking this game down, we know what South Florida is capable of. So we knew this would not be an easy victory, a cupcake victory for the Gators by any means. But actually losing this game at home is inexcusable. And it's the way that Florida lost this game. It was in their hands for so long. They just needed that knockout punch. And they didn't have it. It was MIA. It was unavailable at the time. Inconsistency on offense continues to plague these Gators. The highs and lows are unbelievable. I'll see this Gators offense operate sometimes, and DJ Lagway's airing it out. They're moving the ball down the field with ease. Jaden Ball's running like a workhorse. It's looking great. And then that momentum will just sputter out. It'll just dry up. And they'll be flatlined for multiple drives in a row. Like, not be able to produce anything, not be able to get anything going. And quite frankly, I don't understand it. We saw it a lot of times last year. That offense will get cooking, they'll get in rhythm, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they'll just dry up like a reservoir in the wintertime. Unbelievable. And then the final drive. The final drive is USF's final drive is something that really sticks out to me. The penalties, the missed tackles that gave South Florida life again and allowed them to drive right down the field in your house in the swamp where you should be dominant. Given your roster, given that environment, you should be dominant in the swamp. South Florida drives right down the field, at ease, at will. They control the tempo. The missed tackles, the penalties, putting wind into South Florida's sails and allowing them to pull this thing off. And especially once South Florida got inside Florida's 30, their body language, it almost looked like they gave up. And that to me is incredibly disheartening. That to me is incredibly sad, incredibly deflating for me to watch. Personally, yes, because I had Florida in my college football playoff bracket. So, I have a personal agenda there, right? I want to see Florida pull this thing off for that reason. But just seeing a perennially great program like Florida, and to see a team littered with that much talent all across the depth chart. I mean, very little holes on this team. That's the effort you're getting on the final drive. You're essentially giving up once South Florida gets inside the 35. That's sad, that's inexcusable, and that's a direct reflection on coaching, which is very much in question in Gainesville right now, and it has every right to be. The road ahead, I'm not going to mince words here. The road ahead for the Gators is incredibly challenging, and that's an understatement. Looking at some of these games ahead here, they have to go to Death Valley to play LSU next week. Then they have to go to Coral Gables to play Miami the week after. Then nonchalantly, they host the Texas Longhorns. They still have to play Georgia. They have to go to Oxford to play Ole Miss. They host Tennessee. And they have to go on the road to Tallahassee to play Florida State, where Alabama already went down this year. You can't lose to South Florida with that gauntlet of a schedule. It can't happen. And yes, Billy Napier, I hate to say it because I like the guy and I'm pulling for him, but he's coaching for his job now. He's coaching for his job. This is a year of a lot of high expectations for Florida. There's a lot of optimism going into this year, and it was understandable. It was justifiable. But losing this game takes the wind right out of their sails, and they need to regroup and regroup fast because the Bayou Bengals are coming for you next week, and they look like they could be the best team in the SEC. This is not a great. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is not a great spot for Florida right now. Again, I've seen crazy things happen. I'm not saying it's over for the Gators. I'm not saying it's over for Billy Napier. But man, they have to go on a hell of a run here. They have to forget what happened on Saturday, have that recency bias, have, short-term memory, forget that happened. And with that schedule, it's going to be challenging. It's a gauntlet. But all I'm going to say is you got to find a way. You got to be consistent on the offensive side of the ball and be detail-oriented on the defensive side of the ball. Tackle well, wrap well, get stops, don't miss tackles, be conscious of penalties, and not saying it can't be done, but for these Gators, a tall task lies ahead. Great win for the Bulls, concerning loss for Florida. Let me know what y'all think about this game in the comment section below. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day.